Hey, Bethany Church in Area 51, Pastor Dave here. I want to do today's lesson a little bit differently. I figured I would try to give you some tools that'll help you in today's modern society against what you're going to be facing. You're going to see people accuse Christians of things. You're going to hear lies, and you're going to hear false narratives trying to justify their unbelief. And that's wrong. I'm going to show you a clip here in a second of somebody doing just that, but you're going to hear all sorts of things like, well, the Easter Bunny's not real, or Santa, or this, or they're going to try to justify how for some reason they don't believe that Jesus is God. Well, that's just them trying to justify the lie that they've made up for their own life. That's one of those turn the other cheek moments, or give them the reasons for your belief. And that's what I want to do, is I want to give you those tools, the same reasons for belief that I have. And you can look at history and see some of those reasons for belief, and that's what I want to show you today. So we're going to go through and see this clip, and this is somebody mocking God believers because we follow God's rules, what he ordained for us. Through faith we live. And we should live that way because he knows what's best for us since he is our creator. Then we're going to discuss how we can explain the reasons for our beliefs to somebody that calls our beliefs fantasies. Because we should have belief in God. Every society in the history of the nations has some belief in God because they could see outwardly that science proves that there's a God. But why is it that Christianity is attacked so hard? You don't see people attacking Muhammad the same way anymore. You don't see people attacking, the Hindu religion or anything else quite the same. Why? Quite frankly, because Jesus is the truth. He is the way, the truth, and the life, the only way to get to heaven. And that's why they attack him. The ancient philosopher Plato said, "There's nobody more hated than he who tells the truth." And because they know it's the truth and they don't have it, they despise what they can't have, or don't have, or choose not to have. Let me show you this clip real quick and we'll be right back.
You successfully managed to control women's bodies that much more. Do you think Invisible Man-Made Sky Daddy will love you now?
Okay, well, after watching that clip, I'm honestly scared a little bit. I'm scared for that guy. Obviously, whatever happened in his life has led to some trauma. It has led to him being unhappy. It has led to him and his hatred. And now he's trying to justify it. He's trying to justify it by attacking others. Ugh, that's a scary thing, man. If we look outwardly to secular history, the Roman government was a very open and just government of rules and regulations. And one of the things they did is they had historians back then. We have the history. Josephus, the ancient historian, wrote about Jesus. The honest to God truth is Jesus was a real person. He wasn't fake. He was born in Bethlehem. He lived and he was executed by the Roman government by crucifixion. And 3 days later, the biggest explosion of the biggest world religion ever happened. That's the truth. The truth is that Jesus came here. He lived a sinless life as fully God, fully man. His choice to do this mission. He went up on the cross and paid our debt because the penalty for sin is death. He paid it willingly. He died, and after 3 days, he rose again to be at the right hand of the Father, because we've never found his body, and human beings never will find his body because it's not in the ground. It's another truth. What other truths are there about history that doesn't come directly from the Bible? Well, simply the fact that all Jesus' followers, there was, his 12 disciples, one left obviously during his arrest, but the other 11 all fled during Jesus' arrest, except for John. The other 10 fled and ran away. And then 3 days later, for some reason, they came back and were perfectly willing to be executed by the Roman government. What would cause that? Only true faith causes that. Jesus was even given a choice to basically denounce what he was saying, and they probably wouldn't have executed him. All the disciples, except for John, were executed, and they were given the choice. All you got to do is say that God isn't real, but they were executed. All of them chose to not deny Christ and be executed. And John was exiled to the Isle of Patmos. That's the truth. That comes from history. It's not made up. It's not your truth or this person's truth. It's the truth. Objectively, the truth. We can look at Romans, and it tells us why we should live by faith, why we should live by God's laws. Because God's rules are not rules to keep us in chains. No, God wants us to be happy and healthy and free, and therefore he gives us rules to keep us out of trouble. Just like we shouldn't drink and drive. Just like a small child shouldn't put their hand on a hot burning stove. That's not freedom keeping that child from putting their hand on the stove. That's looking out for their welfare, right? That's keeping them free, because pain and bad health is another form of enslavement. So in Romans, Paul lines out some of these reasons for our belief and talk about why we should stay faithful. In Romans 1:2, it says, the gospel he promised beforehand through his prophets in the Holy Scriptures. He's talking about the Old Testament, how they clearly talked about Jesus coming regarding his son, who has an earthly life through the descendants of David. Jesus was born in the line of David. You see, one thing that they're doing today is trying to say that Jesus was a different race other than being a Hebrew, a Jew. No, he was a Jew. If you want to see what he looked like, look at the Holocaust survivors. And the only reason that's important isn't because of color of skin. The reason that's important is because the line came through David. It was the Davidic covenant. This was foretold by the previous prophets. They're attacking Jesus's divineness, his holiness, by trying to attack the line which he came from when they're using that argument. Clearly here it says that Jesus came through the line of David. If we go on to Romans 1:7, it says, to all in Rome who are so loved by God and called to be his holy people. We're now called to be his holy people as well, because we are the Gentiles, unless you're Jewish, and that's fine too, to be called. And in 16, it goes on to say, 1:16, Romans, for I am not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes. That's thank God for that. For in the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed, a righteousness that is by faith from first to last. Just as it is written, the righteous will live by faith. That's why we go by what God's rules are. It's not our rules. We didn't make them up. God did. And finally, in Romans 1:18, it says, the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness. Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so people are without excuse. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him, but their thinking became futile, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools. They exchanged glory of the immortal God for images that would look like mortal human beings, like birds and animals and reptiles. Therefore, God gave them up to their sinful desires in their hearts. Woof. Don't be one of those people. Don't be a person that gets the truth and denies it because of some pain. God doesn't say that your life is going to be perfect. We still have to deal with pain and anguish in this life. God is going to make it right one day, but currently, right now, on this earth, there is pain and there is difficulty. Don't let that come in between you and your relationship with God. We follow God because we know he's going to make our lives right. He's going to make our bodies perfect. and we will get to spend an eternity with him. But we have to stay faithful. We have to understand and glorify him and give our lives over to the one true God and to Jesus, who decided to come here on his own free will and pay our debt. That's all we have to do, is ask him to pay our debt, and it's good. But a lot of people these days don't want to do that. They want to make excuses of why they think they're better than everybody else. They're denying what God has made plainly obvious. Don't be one of those people. Have a good reason for your belief. Be ready for people who talk about God poorly. Be ready to give your reasons. But be ready to have some opposition too. God gives us freedom, so that means some people are going to still deny him. So you got to be prepared for that. Guys, I'm praying for you. God bless you.